in the heart of the old Medina of Mer, where the alleyways twist like a labyrinth, and the air carries the scent of spices and dust. There's a tale whispered only by the very old or the very drunk. They call it Fanis al, the Lantern of the Dead. Let's jump right into this week's scary story. Chapter 1. The Antique Shop. Youssef was a young Moroccan antiques dealer who prided himself on finding the most obscure artifacts hidden in the city's forgotten corners. His tiny shop was wedged between two decaying riads, and while tourists were his main customers, it was the locals who sometimes brought him strange, older items wrapped in cloth and silence. One evening, just before Maghrib prayer, an old blind man arrived at Youssef's door. He didn't speak. He simply placed an object on the counter wrapped in a faded green shawl, his hands trembling. When Youssef asked about the price, the old man whispered only one word: "Don't light it." Then he left. Inside the shawl was a small brass lantern, tarnished and cold to the touch, yet oddly beautiful. Its glass panes were stained with what looked like old soot, and the chain attached to it was rusted almost solid. There was an inscription on the base in old Maghrebi script that Youssef couldn't quite read. Of course, he ignored the warning. Chapter 2. The first night. That night, alone in his apartment above the shop, Youssef cleaned the lantern and placed a candle inside. The moment the flame flickered to life, the temperature in the room dropped. The shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, and the candle's flame didn't sway. It stood completely still. He heard nothing unusual at first, but just past 2 a.m. he woke up to a whisper. Not outside his window, not from his phone, inside the room. Youssef ... He froze. The lantern, now resting on a shelf, was lit again, though he was sure he had blown out the candle. A figure stood in the corner, half-seen face obscured, not moving. When Youssef turned on the light, the figure vanished. The lantern went out. Chapter 3. The old imam. The next day, terrified and sleepy, Youssef sought out an old imam known for dealing with matters of the unseen. When he showed the lantern to the imam, the old man recoiled. "This is not an ordinary object," he said. "That is a Makbura lantern used to guide the dead during ancient burials in the desert. It is said that if such a lantern is lit by the wrong hand, the souls it once led may return." Youssef asked what to do. The imam shook his head. "There is no undoing the invitation, only endurance or descent." Chapter 4. The descent. That night, the voices returned louder. "Let us finish the journey." He began seeing people in his mirrors, strangers rotting, buried in tattered caftans, eyes hollow, reaching toward him. He heard footsteps on the roof, knocking from under his bed, and always the lantern glowed faintly red. Then the deaths began. First, his neighbor's cat was found mutilated on his doorstep. Then, his elderly landlord dropped dead outside his door, eyes wide in horror. Every night, Youssef dreamt of sand swallowing him alive. In one dream, a skeleton whispered in his ear, "You lit the way. Now you must follow it." Desperate, he tried to throw the lantern into the river, but it returned to his shelf the next morning, still lit. He poured gasoline on it and set it ablaze. The flame danced but didn't die. It screamed. Chapter 5. The last light. On the 7th night, Marrakesh was hit by a rare sandstorm. Youssef boarded up his windows and prepared for the worst. At 2:17 a.m. the power in the building went out, and in the silence he heard the floorboards groan as something climbed up the stairs. The lantern began to glow brighter than ever, casting shadows that didn't match anything in the room. He locked his door. He prayed. Then came a knock. Not on the door, from inside the closet, and then a whisper, inches from his ear, "Blow out the light, and see what you freed." Youssef was never seen again. His shop was closed, the apartment sealed, but every now and then, tourists claimed to see a dim lantern glowing behind the shuttered window above the alley. And if you ever hear someone whisper your name in Marrakesh just after midnight, don't turn around. It might be the light, looking for its next bearer. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this modern retelling of the classic Arabian folktale, The Burning of the Dead Man's Lantern. This terrifying tale is part of the rich oral tradition of the Middle East, passed down through generations. In its original form, the story likely dates back hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. Now, while we have retold this story for children in the past, today we wanted to bring you a darker, scarier version more suited for adults. So let me know how we did. Did we succeed in creating a spine-chilling tale? If you want more stories like these, don't forget to subscribe. And please remember to share this episode with your friends. And thank you all so much for giving our podcast a listen. Until next time.